objectives by the end of this particular unit is to be able to write good essays. You should also be able to write good business letters and memos. You should also be able to write good reports. You should also be able to make summaries of speeches and articles, as well as be able to develop your reading skills. Under this particular chapter, chapter 3, we are going to look at how to write good essays. We're also going to try and write very good business letters and memos, and you're going to as well be able to write good reports. I hope my Zoom is unlimited. In case I'm limited, please do alert me. If the Zoom, I'm told it's unlimited. So in case I go off, please do let me know. I don't be talking alone. Those are the objectives to write good letters, to write good business memos, to write good reports. Sorry. Make summaries of speeches and articles, as well as develop reading skills. Let us begin by looking at essay writing. Let us begin by looking at essay writing. When you are doing an essay, essentially what you're attempting to do is you are attempting to write a given topic. An essay is therefore derived from French word. Essays that means to attempt. You're basically attempting to write on a topic. So you are writing an essay. It's about writing a composition in any topic or subject. So usually from all of you, you have written composition as some point. Is a composition is made of paragraphs which are logically arranged and connected with one another. And each paragraph will therefore discuss a particular subject relating to the topic. So essay writing, you are attempting to write on a given topic. And the essay word is derived from a French word, essays, that means an attempt. You are attempting or to attempt to write on a particular topic or subject. You are writing basically a composition which is made up of paragraphs which are logically arranged and connected with one another. Each paragraph, therefore, in your essay will discuss a particular subject relating to the topic. How then, as a student, can you be able to write a good essay? How then, as a student, can you be able to write a good essay? You are expected to define the scope of your essay. For example, if you are or you want to write about maybe problems of industrialization, the scope will be different from if you are writing, for example, let me say, evils of industrialization. In the first topic, problems of industrialization, there you will be able or you will discuss about maybe availability of raw materials or energy or labor or market conditions, etc., etc. Those are the problems of industrialization. In the topic 2, however, you are writing about effects or evils of industrialization. And the evils and or effects of industrialization, we are talking about exploitation of labor, maybe concentration of wealth in a few hands, or pollution of the environment. Those are the evils. So for you to be able to write a good essay, then it is paramount that you differentiate the different scopes of your writing. If your topic is industrialization that I have given, then you have to define what will be in your paragraph 1. If your paragraph 1, you choose problems of industrialization, stick to that scope. What are the problems? Are there lack of energy, lack of raw materials? Is the market condition favorable? When you discuss about effects, they are the things that come as a result of industrialization. We have the advantages and the disadvantages of industrialization. And in that particular scope, you should be able to list clearly what are the effects stroke ills of industrialization. So the point 1 that you must take into consideration when writing or drafting an essay is you must define the scope of your topic very clearly. The second thing you must do when writing on or when writing a good essay is you must jot down the ideas. Hope I'm still on. All right, I'm still on. Beautiful. So I have said that the first way through which you can be able to write a good essay is the first thing you must do is you must define the scope of your essay clearly. The second thing you must do is you should be able to jot down the ideas. You should be able to jot down your ideas before you put them into paper. So sketch your ideas, sketch your relevant ideas before you write them proper. The third thing you must do is you must prepare the outlines. You must prepare the outlines. Essentially, what I mean by that is you must arrange your ideas you have generated in a logical sequence and you prepare your outline. If you are writing about an event, don't start with how the party was before you tell us the attendance or even you tell us where it was, the location. Discuss or determine the most important W in your event. I usually tell my students that when you are writing, you must be able to identify the right W. And the 5 W's in writing, we have the who, the what, the when, the why, the where, and the how it happened. So in such a case where you are writing about an event, then the how element comes last. The who comes first. The where follows. And the whys and all those other W's comes next. So you should be able to have a chronological order or sequence of the event. The fourth thing you must do as a good essay writer is you must think of an attractive beginning. You must think of an attractive beginning. You must think of an attractive beginning. Introduction should be fresh. Your introduction must be original and arresting or captivating. And always remember that your introduction must be strictly relevant to the subject. Your introduction that is already captivating, fresh, and original and arresting must be strictly relevant to the subject matter. How to write a good essay, I will repeat, is the first thing you must do, you must define the scope. The other thing you have to do is you have to jot down the ideas. The third thing you must do is prepare the outlines properly. Fourth is you have to think of an attractive beginning. Next, you have to make sure that your conclusions have to be stated clearly and firmly. When you are concluding your essay, make sure that your reader can be able to tell that you are coming to the conclusion of your essay. Don't leave your essay not properly packaged, hanging, and people don't know whether you're beginning or somebody arrested you in the process. Make sure that your conclusion is stated clearly and firmly. Number 6 is you must develop different points in different paragraphs. You must develop different points in different paragraphs. Do not jumble up your points. You started with a point, you leave it hanging, you go to the second point, third point, you come back to point number 1. That is not allowed for any good essay writer. Make sure that you have some sequence, some flow in your writing. We can be able to tell that in this particular event, this happened, then this followed, then you had this next A, B, C, D, up to the conclusive end. So make sure that your points are not jumbled up as you write your essay. Develop the points differently and strongly. And of course, in their own paragraphs. Number 7, before you give anybody your essay, you are the author of your essay. So make sure you revise your essay. Before you send your essay for examination or you send your essay for another second eye or an editor, please make sure that you go through your essay, revise your essay. Number 8 thing or factor that you have to consider for you to be called or termed as a good essay writer is you must avoid being irrelevant. You must avoid being irrelevant in your essay. Stick to your line of thought. Stick to the defined scope that I talked about at the initial stages of how you can be able to write a good essay. Number 9 is use simple language. We always say in communication that your language should be so basic that a class 1 student or pupil can be able to read. Using unnecessary technical jargons is not allowed in essay. Make sure that your story can be read by anybody who knows how to read or write their name. That is how simple, how basic your articles should be. Last but not least, as a student who wants to develop good writing skills and techniques on essays, make sure that you develop a habit of reading newspapers and periodicals all the time. Nowadays, you can read the newspapers or periodicals from your phone anywhere. Don't have to physically have the paper newspaper. No, you can read. Make a habit of reading. Read a lot, and from there, you will be able to define a scope, especially when you are to do an essay. Essay writing was our first subtopic in writing skills. Let us look at 3.2 correspondence. Let us look at 3.2 correspondence. I would repeat the point for the sake of those who lost me at some point. How to write a good essay. Point number 1 is define the scope of your essay. Point number 2, jot down the ideas. Jot down the ideas. Point number 3 is prepare the outline, how you arrange and generate your story in a logical sequence. Have some chronological sequence. That is point number 3. Point number 4 is think of an attractive beginning. And I said under that point, which is critical, is that your introduction must be fresh, your introduction must be original, arresting and captivating as well, while you stick to relevant subject or relevance. Point number 5. Point number 5 is have conclusions that are clear and firm. Point number 5 is you should have conclusions that are clear and are firm. Have conclusions that are clear and are firm. And number 6 is develop different points in different paragraphs. Develop different points in different paragraphs. Point number 7 is revise your essay. Point number 7, revise your essay. Point number 8, avoid being irrelevant. Point number 8, avoid being irrelevant. Point number 9, I said, use simple language. Point number 5, use simple. Point number 9, sorry, use simple language. Last but not least is I said that you need to develop a habit of reading newspapers and periodicals. We are on chapter 3, subtopic 2, and we are going to look at correspondences. Under correspondence, we have different ways through which people communicate in an organization. That is what is referred to as correspondences, how people communicate in organizations. So the first one the first correspondence we are going to look at are the business letters. The first correspondence we will look at are business letters. As I have just mentioned, is business letters or correspondence for that matter are used to communicate to persons outside the organization. When you write a business letter, you do not write it for yourself. You write it to be able to communicate with people who are not in persons in your organization. So what are the functions of business letters? And this is an area that is very critical and rarely misses in an examination. So kindly take note. I set and I mark. So please take note on this particular topic. Take note on this particular topic with critical emphasis on business letters. I repeat that business letters are used to communicate to people, persons outside an organization. What are then functions of business letter? Functions of business letters. Functions of business letters. The first function of a business letter is to provide a convenient and inexpensive means of communication without personal contact. It provides a convenient and inexpensive means of communication without personal contact, without personal contact. So the first function of a business letter is that it is a convenient and inexpensive way or means of communication without necessarily having to have personal contact. Number two is business letters seek or give information. Business letters seek or give information. When you write a letter, you write a letter to convey an idea, to convey your feelings, to convey a request or an information from one business to the other. So essentially, that means that business letters' other main function is to seek or give information. Number three function of a business letter is to furnish evidence of transactions entered into. They are meant to furnish evidence of transactions entered into. When you write a letter is a permanent document that can always be referred to when there is need. So therefore, this particular function is to ensure that there is an evidence that a communication was actually made. There is evidence that a communication was actually made. The fourth function of a business letter is to provide a record for future reference, to provide a record. That we actually talked about this through a letter, and I was able to seek or give you this particular information. So we have a reference point that that particular issue that has been raised maybe a year later or months or weeks later was actually documented, and there is evidence of the same. So business letter will provide a record for future reference. Last but not least, it is a written record and reference. You can always go back and refer to that particular letter at that particular point. We have classifications of business letters. Classifications of business letters. Letters can be classified, or business letters can be classified into several types. So the list I'm gonna give you in a few is the kind or types of business letters or classifications of business letters, whichever way you'd want to define it. The first kind of business letter we have is the letter of inquiry. The first kind of a business letter we have is letters of inquiry. Inquiry is spelled as INQUIRY. INQUIRY. The second type of a business letter, we have letters answering a request. Letters answering a request. Letters answering a request. The third type of business letter we have is claim and adjustment letters. Claim and adjustment letters. Claim and adjustment letters. Then we have the fourth category of credit letters. We have the fourth category of credit letters. The fourth category of credit letters. Letters of inquiry, 1, letters answering a request, 2, claim and adjustment letters, 3, credit letters at number 4, collection letters at number 5, collection letters at number 5, sales letters at number 6, Sales letters at number 6, and employment letters last but not least. We have letters of inquiry. 2, we have letters answering a request. 3, we have claim and adjustment letters. 4, we have credit letters. 5, we have collection letters. 6, we have sales letters. Last but not least, we have employment letters. Essentials of a business letter. Essentials of effective business letter. Essentials of effective business letters. What we mean here is what makes a letter or a business letter effective? What are the essentials that will make your letter that you send to your partners or your clients be referred to us, that your letter you wrote to us was well received and well noted? It cannot be so if your letter does not meet these requirements. One is your letter can only be effective if it is prompt. Promptness. What we mean by letter being prompt is your letter, you must acknowledge the letter and indicate that this letter will be replied to at this particular point, that this letter will be replied to at this particular point. So what ideally should happen then is you should reply to the letter the day it is received. If not, then acknowledge that you have received a letter and indicate when a reply will be sent. So promptness means you are replying to the letter as soon as you receive it. If you are not in a capacity to do so, then you have to acknowledge that the letter was indeed received and that you indicate when you will reply. Number 2 is knowledge of the subject. Number 2, under the essentials of effective business letter, is you must have knowledge of the subject. This includes knowledge of past correspondence. You must have a record that this letter was written at this particular point, and I understand the content of this letter, and I can be able to respond appropriately because I understand the genesis of this particular letter. Knowledge of the subject. Essential number 3. Essential number 3 is accuracy, completeness, and clarity. Accuracy, completeness, and clarity. A good business letter must always have all the facts verified. All the facts must be verified before you write them. All the facts must be verified before you write them. All the facts must be verified before you write them. Number 4, essential of an effective business letter is your letter must have some courtesy. Your letter must have some courtesy. If you are seeking a favor using your business letter, then such favors must be sought politely and express as well your gratitude for the favors that have been granted unto you. So seek favors politely and express your gratitude if you have been granted the favors. Do so to ensure that your letter meets the essentials of an effective business letter. Number 5 is appropriateness. Number 5 is appropriateness. Where do I pardon Victor? Where did I lose you? Victor, where did I lose you? Essentials of effective business letter. One I said is promptness. Reply to the letter the day it is received. Reply to the letter the day it is received. If you need time to reply to it, acknowledge recipient and tell the respondent or the receiver when you will give an appropriate reply to the same. So under essentials, the first point was promptness, spelled as PROMPTNESS, PROMPTNESS. Number 2 is knowledge of the subject. Number 2 is knowledge of the subject. Number 3 is accuracy, completeness, and clarity. Number 3, accuracy, completeness, and clarity. Verify facts before you write them. Number 4, I mentioned courtesy. Number 4, I mentioned courtesy. Number 5, I mentioned appropriateness. Appropriateness. Check the tone of your letter according to the occasion. Check the tone of your letter according to the occasion and psychology of your reader, according to the occasion and psychology of your reader. And there are very many other points, but because of time, we will have to mention only those 5 points. There are others like your tact, how do you write your letter, persuasion, conciseness, adapt the you approach, adapt a positive and pleasant approach, and many others using familiar language that I had mentioned when you are writing a good essay. Parts of a business letter. Parts of a business letter. Parts of a business letter. The first part that any letter has, this is common knowledge because I know majority of you have written letters. In an exam, you might be told to write a letter. So what will be marked here essentially, it's not even the content of your letter. It is whether you understand the essentials of a good business letter. That is one thing that will be marked. The other thing that any examiner of sound mind will check is whether your letter has the different parts. The first part of a business letter is the heading. The first part of a business letter is the headings. The heading. The heading of the letter is the letterhead of the letter. The heading is the letterhead of the letter. The heading contains the name of the organization. The heading contains the name of the organization, one, the logo, two, the address, three. The heading, I will repeat, is the letterhead of the letter. Hapo juu. You are expected hapo juu to name the organization, the logo, the address, telephone number, fax number if any, email, and physical location of your organization. The heading is the letterhead of the letter. It contains the name of the organization, the logo, the address, the telephone number, fax number, email address, as well as the physical location of the business. That is part one of a business letter. The second portion or part of a business letter are the dates. The date, D-A-T-E, the date. The date normally comes below the heading. The date normally comes below the heading. And there is a format. It's either you write the date as 30th October, maybe 2022, or October 30th, 2022. 30th October 2022 or October 30th, 2022. Either or is applicable. Only what you need to remember is to underline the date. If you are using full blocked letters, I believe you know the blocked letters, the date comes at the left-hand side. If you're using the full blocked letters, the date comes on the left-hand side. In case you're using the semi-blocked letters, it will appear on the right-hand side of the paper. The third part of the letter, the third part of the business letter, we have something known as reference. We have something known as reference. We have something known as a reference. Now the reference comes below the date for fully blocked letters. The reference comes before the date, below the date, sorry, for fully blocked letters. It comes below the date for fully blocked letters. Or for others, it can be written on the same line as the date. Others can decide to write it on the same line of the date. For those using semi-blocked letters, but you start at the left margin. So if you're using full capital letters, let the date come below it. If you're using the semi-blocked letters, you're mixing capital and small letters, start at the left margin. The reference normally is used to identify the department or the section where the communication originates. If you're talking about maybe it's originating from the Ministry of Communication, you will indicate MOICT stroke, the number stroke, like that, like that. So this is reference number, blah, 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 blah. Part 1, I have said we have the letterhead. Part 2 is the date. Part 3, we have reference. Part 4, we have the inside address. Inside address. Inside address contains the name and address of the person or firm to which the letter is written. So an inside address, you have already written your letterhead with your full information about your organization. Down here, you will write the inside address where your letter is addressed to. You can add something, attention, blah, 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 blah. Especially when you want your letter directed to an identified officer in the organization. Part 5 of the business letter, we have the salutation. Part 5, we have the salutation. Salutation is ideally the greeting part of a letter. You are greeting whoever you are addressing the letter to. If it is a formal letter, then you can address dear sir or dear madam for ladies. For semi-personal letters, you can write dear Mr. Otieno or dear Mora or dear Njoroge. In personal letters, we have semi-personal letters where you address somebody with their names. But for personal letters, you can write, my dear Juliet, my dear Harrison, my dear Jack, my dear whoever it is. So salutation is the greeting part where formal letters you address as dear sir or dear madam. Semi-personal letters, dear Mr. Otieno, dear Mura, etc. But for personal letters, you can go as personal as you can. My dear Harrison, my dear Jackson, my dear Charles, my dear whoever is your dear. Salutation. Then we have part 6 of the business letter, and we have the body of the letter. The body of the letter. The body of the letter is again subdivided. The body of the letter is again subdivided. The first part of the body of the letter, we have the subject or reference. Subject or reference. Subject is used when you are writing a letter for the very first time. When you use subject, you are writing that letter for the very first time. While reference is used when you are replying to a letter. Let's say you have been given a transfer at the organization where you are working at, and you do not want to go for this transfer. You will be replying to this letter to explain your situation or position. You will refer, because most such letters have a reference number. So we'll refer to reference number, blah, 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 blah. And you begin your body by saying, I'm referring to your letter, blah, 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 dated this day, blah, 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 blah. Then you proceed, because you are replying to a letter that was written to you. But when you want a transfer, you will write there subject transfer. I am writing to you seeking a transfer, maybe from Ruaraka to town campus because of ABCD. Kindly take note at what point you use subject and at what point you use reference. The second part of the body of the letter, we have the opening paragraph. The opening paragraph. Opening paragraph is basically where you express pleasure or gratitude or acknowledgement. Remember to use the you approach in your opening paragraph. I'm grateful, I acknowledge, it's my pleasure, it's about you. So the opening paragraph, you're expressing pleasure or gratitude, or you're simply acknowledging receipt of another letter. Then you have the main paragraph. Remember, we are in part 6 of the business letter, and that is the body of the letter, where we have part 1 being the subject or reference, part 2 being the opening paragraph. Part 3 is the main paragraph. This is where subject matter of the letter is being discussed. Make sure all issues you have are detailed in the main paragraph. Remember, I've not mentioned there are 2 or 3, 1 paragraph. Last but not least, under the subdivisions of the body of the letter, we have the closing paragraph. We have the closing paragraph. Ideally, what this particular paragraph is supposed to do is it's supposed to provide motivation to the reader to take action. Let your letter trigger an action from the reader. You can close with a request or an offer for an action to be triggered. Parts of the body of the letter, or subdivisions of the body of the letter. We have the subject or reference, we have the opening paragraph, we have the main paragraph. Last but not least, you must captivate your reader for an action in the closing paragraph section. We have discussed under this topic, it says we have discussed business letters. 3.3, let us look at memos. Memo is a short form for memorandum. Memo is short form for memorandum. And memos are usually used for internal communication. Memos are usually used for internal communication. Memo is a short form for memorandum, and they are used for internal communications. Memos too have sections. Memos too have sections, and they have, the first section they have is a heading. I will send you samples of what an ideal blocked letter should look like, an ideal semi-blocked letter should look like, as well as memos. So don't be elaborate. I will do the necessary and send in your WhatsApp group. Sections of a memo, we have the heading. It is not mandatory, like in a business letter, that your memo must have a letterhead. It may not. This depends on the house customs. How do you write an organization? As an organization, your memos, they may have a letterhead or they may lack a letterhead as well. It is not illegal to have. It is not illegal not to have. So a memo has the heading. A memo will have the subject, and a memo will have the agenda. Memo has three parts. It has a heading, it has a subject, and it has the agenda. The next subtopic that is equally critical under this topic is reading. 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 Let us look at reading. Reading is spelled as R-E-A-D-I-N-G. Reading. Many readers, it is important to note, waste time for two reasons. Many readers, it is important to note, waste time, and a lot of time for that matter, because of two reasons. One, they read everything at the same speed, and often it's usually at a very low speed. Many readers, I will repeat, usually waste a lot of time for two reasons. One is they read everything at the same speed, and usually the speed is very slow. So you want to read all the notes at a very slow speed. You will be wasting so much time. You will be wasting so much time. The second reason why readers waste a lot of time is because they do not understand or retain what they have read. So you just read casually without taking time to understand the content of what you are reading, resulting into a waste of time. It is advised that a good reader adjusts his or her speed according to the purpose or difficulty of the subject matter. A good reader should adjust his or her speed according to the purpose or difficulty of the subject matter. So do not read everything at the same speed. Adjust your speed according to the details of a particular read. And that is why we have what we call the reading techniques. We have what we refer to as the reading techniques. And the first technique we're going to look at today is scanning as a technique in reading. Scanning as a technique in reading. Scanning is spelled as SCANNING. Scanning. From the word scan, we know what a scan is. We know what ideally a scan is. A scan is the process of looking quickly through a text to find a particular piece of information. Scanning is the process of looking quickly through a text to find a particular piece of information. When you are scanning, you are moving your eyes quickly down the text, looking for the keywords to the topic in question. When you're scanning your eyes, you're quickly doing that, looking for keywords related to the topic in question. Scanning is therefore used for reading street or telephone directories to find a particular name. So when it's essentially what you do even in your contacts, you know that you're looking maybe for Madame Alice's number. So you will go to the first contacts in the phone are usually arranged in an alphabetical order. So we'll know that my name appears on top in your contacts, and you'll scan quickly through your contacts to get my number, or maybe to get the number of the dean or the VC. Unataka kwenda kuchongoa, oh, huyu mwalimu amefanya ABCD. You know, so you scan quickly through your contacts to get the number of your dean or maybe your vice chancellor, whoever it is, or your head of department, so that you're able to go report an anomaly or something. You scan through your contacts. It is also used to, when you want to go through a piece of continuous writing, to find specificities. You want to find particular things, whether it's statistics or whether it's data, whatever you want to find, you scan through a document to continue or to be able to find particular relevant information that you need. So scanning is not useful at all times. It can only be useful when you're trying to read an annual report or maybe a catalog, or when you have so much reports to read. So scanning is important, especially when you want to go through the main draft of a report. But how again can you improve your scanning speed? How again can you improve your scanning speed? When you want to increase your scanning speed, then draw a finger down the center of the page while moving your eyes. You move with your fingers. You move with your fingers or using your fingers while you scan through, while you move your eyes rapidly from side to side as you follow it down. You can even put a piece of paper down the page, curtailing off the line you have to read. So you can use your finger or can you use a piece of paper to help you move through as you read. That is the only way through which you can improve the speed of reading when you're using this technique of scanning. Scanning is spelled as S-C-A-N-N-I-G, scanning. The second technique, the second reading technique, we have a technique known as skimming. Skimming technique. Skimming is spelled as S-K-I-M-M-I-N-G, skimming. Unlike scanning, skimming requires a lot of concentration so that you're able to get an idea of what the text is all about. Skimming, unlike scanning, you require a lot of concentration to be able to get an idea of what the text is all about. In skimming, words are not individually noted. Skimming is glancing at speed over the printed words on a page. You speed over the printed words on a page. You are giving it more concentration. You're taking your time. And when you're skimming, it involves previewing and identifying priorities where you need to read more slowly. So you are previewing as well as identifying priorities where to read on a bit more slowly. So it's a more detailed kind of reading technique, more than the scanning technique. Through skimming, you are trying maybe to find the required piece of information, and it will help with your memory as well, so that you immediately grasp what you have just read. Because you've done a preview, you have priorities, you have a required piece of information you need to get, and therefore you will have to memorize on your contents. How can you skim? How then can you skim? How then can you skim? The first way through which you can skim is one, through anticipation. The first way through which you can skim is one, through anticipation. Anticipation is spelled as ANTICIPATION. We are discussing how to skim when you're reading, or how to skim when you are reading. And I have said we have two ways through which you can skim. The first one is through anticipation. By anticipating, ideally what I mean is you're trying to look at the whole content by seeing the complete picture rather than the separate bits. So anticipate what you're coming, or what is coming ahead of what you are reading. You can be able to visualize that this particular content is heading this direction. So you're already skipping, you're memorizing and having an idea of what you expect forward. You think faster than you read, and you'll be able to make predictions and what you expect to read next. If a problem, for example, has been described, then you will as well maybe anticipate a solution to the same. Anticipation as a mode of skimming. The second way through which you can skim is through organization. The second way through which you can skim or use the technique of skimming is through organization. By organization, essentially what I mean is you should go through the structure or patterns of the writing. Have a skeleton. If the book is divided into chapters or subsections, read through using the chapters or subsections. If you go through your reading following the structure, we will find that you'll be able to read more speedily. We are discussing reading techniques. The first technique I have mentioned is the technique of scanning. The second technique is a technique of skimming. The third technique, which is last but not least, is study reading. Study reading. Study reading. This is required when you need to read in detail. What you are expected to do as a student is to employ this technique number 3. As a student, don't scan. As a student, don't skim. As a student, do what we call, or a technique we call, study reading. Read in detail. When you're reading a book in the library, read in detail. read using the headings, read topic sentences, read. You can only use skimming methods when you are making your notes. With your notes, you can skim. But when you are reading for an upcoming communication exams, I expect you to use study reading technique. That marks the end of chapter 3. Any question, comment, additions, subtractions, or anything at this point before we look at the next chapter? And please let me know if we discussed chapter 4, visual communication. Did we discuss visual communication? If not, then we are going to look at it at the last subject, at the last chapter of today. So our chapter 4, if we did not look at it, comes next, visual communication. And it is a short chapter. If we did not discuss, let us look at it today. Any question, comment, addition, or subtractions before I proceed? Nitatuma notes kwa box. Nitatuma notes. Paul Otieno, I have detailed the difference between scanning and skimming. And Paul Otieno, skimming is not spelled as S-C-H-E-M-I-N-G. Skimming is spelled as S-K-I-M-M-I-N-G. Irene Warimo, please, madam, stop. We are having another class. Imagine I will not stop because we are a bit late. So kindly allow me to just proceed. Let us just proceed. For those who can leave, let them leave, but please allow me because this class is supposed to go for 3 hours. It is supposed to run for 3 hours, but I'm always very kind enough to just have an hour and a half or two. But because we missed the other class, please allow me to proceed so that we finish the work in time. Remember, your exams will start on 5th December. So ideally, what I do with this particular class is I usually finish it 2 weeks to time. So if I stop now, I will not be able to complete it. I finish my classes 2 weeks to the deadline. 2 weeks before exams start so that you are able to revise, so that you don't hear my voice over and over again for the whole semester up to the last day. No, allow me to proceed today, I beg of you, and I hope you understand. Is it okay? Abdimalik Masal, I hope you are together and you have given me an okay to go ahead. Irene Waruino, are we together at that point, my dear? Thank you very much. I appreciate your understanding. You will get the notes in due course and be able to read. Don't worry. As always, I will always love to go back when there is need. So when you will not have understood anything from your notes, please do raise a point, and I usually do make a point of making sure that I go through what you have not read. But for the sake of time, revision time and class time, allow me to proceed with today's class so that we finish at least 2 topics today. I will send the notes for those who are concerned. Don't worry, the notes are okay and are with me, and you will have them processed for you. Crystal Brian, you're happy. What's the issue? Thank you, Irene. I appreciate you, and I'm sorry you have to go for another class. Any other question up to that point? Any other question? Yes, Kaloki, the class should be 3 hours, my dear. But I'm usually kind to, not bore you so much with my voice the whole Wednesday morning. I try. All right, thank you very much. Chapter 4, visual communication. Now, when we talk about visual communication, ideally, our objective is to be able to present information using graph, charts, and other forms of visual communication. The objective of chapter 4 is by the end of it, you should be able to know how to use graphs, how to use charts, and how to use other forms of visual communication. You should also be able to prepare presentation using slides and transparencies. You should be able to prepare presentations using aids like slides and transparencies. You should be able, by the end of this very short topic, is you should be able to appreciate the role of presentation aids in communication. You should be able to appreciate the role of presentation aids in communication. The other thing you should be able to use is interpret and follow presentations presented in a form of graph or chart or other forms of communication. So let's look briefly at charts. And I know this is a topic that is not alien or new to most of you, so we will be able to move through it quickly and go to the chapter 5 of today. Should time allow and should my voice still not feel hungry, quote unquote, to proceed. But in the meantime, let us take it bit by bit and understand charts. And I believe this is a topic that should be just a walkover because these are things we can relate. It is so short. We will finish chapter 4 before you realize. Under charts, we have different types of charts. The first chart we will talk about are the bar charts. Bar charts are some of the most popular ways of presenting statistics. Bar charts are some of the most popular ways of presenting statistics. A bar chart or a bar chart consists of strips of different lengths, each representing a numerical figure. A bar chart consists of strips of different lengths, each representing a numerical figure. The longer the bar chart, the larger the figure it denotes. The longer the bar chart, the longer the bar, the larger the figure it denotes. So we all know, or I expect you to read on how to construct a bar chart. Of course, in communication, that is not what I'm going to ask you to do. I will not ask you on how to construct a bar chart, but you should be able to know that for you to construct a bar chart, you should be able to decide on the scale in which the figures are to be represented. For example, maybe 1 centimeter equals to $500. So you should be able to decide on that scale. You should be able to draw the axes as well. Those are the lines which the scale is marked at regular intervals. Then, of course, you have to decide on the order of the bars. If they show statistics over a period of time, they should be able to arrange or to be arranged in a chronological order. And then you are expected to label, if necessary, and give the chart a clear heading. As well, give your source of data. The data is not your own. And if you use certain data without acknowledgement of where you got it from, then you might be guilty of plagiarism. So ensure that you indicate the source of your data. That is the bar chart. Let us look at the pie chart. Pie chart. A pie chart is used to show the relevant size of separate components of a whole. A pie chart is used to show the relevant size of separate components of a whole. For example, they can be used to show how the income of a country is spent. So if you want to show an income of a country, then ideally, it's ideal to use a pie chart. So a pie chart, I will reiterate that they are used to show the relevant size of separate components of a whole. For example, you want to show the income or expenditure of a country, then it is more ideal to use a pie chart. Then we have the graphs. Graphs, we have discussed charts as part of chapter 4, visual communication. And I said here, we are learning how to present information using graph charts and other forms of visual presentation or communication. And we are also learning how to prepare these presentations. And we will as well appreciate the role of presentation aids in communication and to interpret and follow presentations. We have discussed charts. Under charts, we have the bar charts, and we have the pie charts as well. Let us understand graphs. Graphs are a valuable form of visual communication. Graphs, it is important to note, are a valuable form of visual communication because they are used to present data on the relationship between two constantly changing elements in the forms of a single line. Graphs are a valuable form of visual communication that are a means of presenting data on the relationship between two constant changing elements, and you will use only a single line. This single line will be the shape of which, or that will reveal the nature of the relationship at a glance. For example, when you talk about the demand curve, and I will send you samples of how a demand, so this topic should not be an uphill task because we know charts how they look like and we know graphs how they look like. So if you want to do the demand curve or the supply curve, you will use a graph. And we know how to draw a graph. Use a graph paper, graph paper the way they look like, and you choose your variables for each axis. If you're talking about the demand curve, one side you can put the price, the other side you can put the quantity. Those are the variables for your demand curve. And then you choose the scales for the two axes that will fit the graph paper that you have. So you mark off the axis at regular intervals. How to draw a graph? 1, you must use a graph paper. 2, choose the variables for each axis. And I have elaborated that, for example, if you're doing a demand curve in a graph, then you have the price on the left side. Is it my left? Yes, my left side. And the downer part, you have the quantity. So use a graph paper, choose your variables for each axis, choose the scales that will fit the graph paper that you have, then mark the axes at regular intervals. Another thing you can do is you can also plot the points of the graph and make sure that you give your graph a clear title so that we can be able to know that this is essentially a demand curve or this is a supply curve or whichever you are trying to achieve by explaining the relationship between two constantly changing elements in the form of a triangle line. The shape will reveal the nature of the relationship of the graph at a glance. Any question, any comment, any addition, any subtraction on chapter 4, because as surprising as it may be, that marks the end of chapter 4. Kwambox, did you get me? Kwambox, Kwamboka, I believe. Kwamboka, are we together up to that point? Crystal, Brian, don't be lazy. Kwamboka, are we together up to that point? Miruru, Michael, the exams must be physical, so you'll be sitting for a physical paper. Kwamboka, Musal, whatever your name is, I am teaching. Listen, don't concentrate on the notes, concentrate on the class. Even if I give you the notes and you didn't understand what I taught, the notes will not mean anything to you. So concentrate to me or concentrate to what I am teaching. Don't let your mind not be fixated on the notes. The notes will come, but have you understood the notes you want? You will have all the notes. I've said that 100 times. Any serious question? Any serious concern? Any question? Kaloki Kevin, this is such a lazy question. I'm not going to answer. Let us be serious. I told you, you are expected to move to another level. Msikwamilie tu hapa. So some questions, sorry to say, they're very basic. They don't project people who want to move forward from where they are to the next one. So Kaloki, you cannot ask whether you'll be doing an ABCD question. You are in university. Whichever grade you are in the university. So behave as one. Frank, what is wrong with the virtual campus? That is not the spelling of virtual. Frank, that is not, yes, communication skills has a lot of issues and I don't understand why. Because you should be able to enroll I have opened it to have self-enrollment. So why others are still being knocked out, I will inquire, but don't worry over it. It will be sorted in due course. Frank, I'm a communications person, so check your spelling. I mark spellings, by the way. Katiechi, you have a spelling on assignment. Please check your grammar. I have issues with men who can't do simple grammar. This is English. This is not English. Luo English, Kikuyu English, Kamba. Please speak English. No, but togetherness, madam. What is that? Please communicate. Miruru, you just feel like typing. You continue typing. All right, I proceed to the chapter 5. Hakuna maswali serious hapo, ni jokers tu. Wenye wako serious wamenyamaza, wanasikia nafundisha. Jokers wanauliza maswali za Nita nisiongee vibaya, wacha tu niwasamehe. Wacha nisiongee vibaya. Boki Christina. No, but when we have you physically, unfortunately, I'm a virtual person. We will meet during the examinations. No physical. All right, let us look at the last topic for today, and we call it a wrap. Let us try. We may not finish it, but let us try and, just to introduce it so that we have it as a wrap. It is a long one. Chapter 5, non-verbal communication. Chapter 5, non-verbal communication. Under this particular topic, the main objectives of it is you should be able to use non-verbal communication effectively. You should be able to use non-verbal communication effectively. You should as well be able to interpret various non-verbal communication clues. You should be able to know that when I smile, I'm happy. When you can't read my mind, maybe I also I can't read you. You should be able to appreciate the importance of non-communication clues while communicating. We have 3 objectives under this topic of nonverbal communication. 1 is you are expected to appropriately use nonverbal means of communication. You are expected to interpret various nonverbal communication clues. You should be able to as well appreciate the importance of nonverbal communication. All communication is affected by non-verbal communication that accompanies it. When I'm talking to you and I'm trying to explain to you a point and you're busy, perusing through your phone or doing something else and we are talking, ideally what I will read is you are not interested in what I am telling you or telling you to do. And that is why I introduced this topic by saying that all communication that we have on a daily basis is affected by the non-verbal communication that you give me, that you show me. If I am talking to you over the telephone, I will be able to know as a communications person the tone of voice, and I will be able to know or decode whether we are together or not in a phone call. And that is a place that as a person, I am blessed to know. When I give you a call, your tone automatically, I will decode it and be able to tell whether I proceed with this line of conversation or I stop till next time. This is why at the end of this particular unit or chapter, you should be able to appreciate the tonal variations when you're talking to somebody. Maybe you have called somebody in the middle of the night, like some of you, they want to call me at around 10 o'clock, send me messages at 10, 11, so long as they see me online, they think I'm a robot, always on the move or working. So when you send me a message, let me tell you past, because ideally, the right time to work is between, or the official working time is between 8 to 5. So when you send me a text after 5, at 10, at 11, at 12, because you saw me online, most of the time I will not respond. That should be because you will have seen I blue ticked you. Not because you said something bad, but because I want to communicate to you that your timing is wrong. You are asking me about the enrollment key at 12. Maybe as a person, I'm also having my own issues that are keeping me awake. Then you are reminding me of a 400 class communication that I have. You know, most of the time, I rarely respond to texts that are past business hours. So if you want to catch my attention, catch me between 8 to 5. That one, most of the time, I will respond. So that is one of the clues that you should be able to decode to know that this text was not responded. Maybe ask yourself, what was exactly wrong? Why so-and-so did not respond to my text? Was it your communication? Because I also read a lot. I get put off by the wrong grammar. That is why I tell you I mark grammar. In the exams that I give you, you will never find a mistake in the papers or the exams I set. For another thing, I read a lot of grammar. You might fail just because you have poor grammar. I can't understand. Remember, I am dealing with over 400 in this class. So if you want me to try and understand what you have written in your paper, make it very basic, make it very understandable so that I understand you. Remember, this particular unit, I have 400 that I have to mark assignments, I have to mark coursework, and I must mark the exam. I am only human and I am limited in capacity. That is why I tell people when you are doing exams, you don't have to start with question 1, which is compulsory if you don't understand it. If you understand it, the better. If you don't understand it, choose a question that will give you an upper hand with how I see you. If you start with question 1 out of 20 or 25, you've already scored 7 over 20. Nitachoka na karatasi yako kabisa. Because I want to mark the other 399. We mwenyewe ushaanguka question 1. Unaanguka kwa nini? And I believe I am very clear, I'm very articulate, I'm very passionate about communication. You must communicate. If question 1 is not giving you proper vibes, leave it alone as you go through it, as you skim and scan through the question. Go to question 2, go to question 3, whichever you find is easier to understand. Give me that question. I don't have a problem giving you 15 over 15. I am not in the business of failing anybody, because in any case, if you fail, I am the one still going to mark your supplementary papers. And it is not fun marking those who have failed. Do a supplementary because you did not get fees. or somebody unfortunately passed on and you are not there at that time, don't go do a supplementary because you decided to be lazy. You want an ABCD option. At the university level, we don't have ABCD options. I don't give. I find them lazy. So ideally, what I'm advising is start with the question you understand. I have taught you well. I have taught you passionately, articulately. I am not 100%, but I know I am playing at the league of 95, 98%, unless you decide to rate me otherwise. So I have given you my best, especially when I teach, because the core element of this unit is the teaching. You should be able to grade me. How do I teach? Did I do or did I give my deliverables as I should?